Farmers Co-op. I would like to introduce you to our agronomy department, Blake Ray, and Christy Keeler, our Purina sales specialist.
Good evening, folks. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Appreciate the opportunity to join you guys. I've got Dr. N.T. Cosby. I think you guys have seen him over the last number of years, right? Last year we were 100% virtual, so it's kind of nice to get out and about and be able to see you guys. You see him face to face and do some things a little more interactive. So with that, appreciate you coming all the way down from Mexico, Missouri, right? So anyway, so tonight, guys, we're here live in a customer's hay barn. We've got some hay back here behind us. And what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about the ways that you guys can help improve your forage and help kind of decrease the cost of protein supplementation. So these are things that we've been kicking around. We were going to do this last May. We were actually face to face. Right. COVID hit us. And so here we are. We always try to get back around to our great ideas that we've got. So with that, NT, I guess I get to thinking about earlier today, we were talking. We got this crop market that's kind of all over the board. Mm-hmm. And I get to thinking about it as when I'm out here on it. Can you kind of help walk us through this around figure?
Yeah, I think that's important, and certainly as grain prices are running up now to potentially historic levels, and so those are going to be reflected in all of our feeds sources as well. So when we go into the co-op and we start looking at what a bag of mineral costs, and maybe that's $25 to $30 a bag of mineral. We know it takes 2 of those per cow per year. So we had $60 in mineral costs. Man, can I cut that? Or what about a protein tub cost? So, you know, a pound of a protein tub through the winter, probably going to cost you somewhere around maybe where's some better ways that we can manage the resources we have, because we know we start cutting protein, we start cutting mineral, we're going to start cutting our production as well. And so some things I might think about. Did you know, I did the math, so I'm going to kind of fill you in on this, Christy. If I save $100 a ton on mineral, so basically $2.50 a bag, that amounts to $5 a cow. Okay, so that's in the day's market, what? 3 pounds of weaning weight, or another way to think of it, it's 3 days of hay feeding. And that's where we want to get to. Are we measuring the right things? And what can we truly look at to help manage our costs and things we can do better when times start getting a little tougher?
Absolutely. So, you know, we've got Blake on with us this evening as well, and he's with our agronomy department within the Farmers Cooperative location. And Blake, I'm going to kind of pass that over to you, that you can kind of walk them through to really get us started with maximizing the safe production.
All right, Christy. I guess just to get started, what I would say is it's like anything else. You've got to start with a good foundation. One quick thing to hit on, the frequency. How often do you need to soil sample? To me, that's the best place to get started. It lets you know where you're at, what nutrients you're lacking, and what you're optimal in. What I've got here is our soil probe. It's about 3 feet long, and mainly for pasture, grass fields, things like that. You're going to want to measure down about 4 to 6 inches for optimal, depth of soil to see where those grasses are needing the nutrients from. So I would say, every year a soil sample would be good, especially if you're cutting hay off of those fields 2-3 times a year, sometimes 4 in an optimal year. That's going to be a good place to start. And if you can't do it, or you don't get around to it every year, I would say at minimum every other year or every 3 years for sure. Because every time you cut hay off of those fields, you're taking those nutrients out. And if you're not putting anything back in, that's going to hinder your production. You know, that's, you need to know where you're at as far as your soil analysis, your soil health goes. And that's where those soil samples come in. A lot of guys will go out, kind of blanket, throw out fertilizer that their fields may actually not be needing. And so with that, getting out and doing a soil sample could save them a ton of money. Just a couple of things to look at there. The way to utilize those soil samples once you get them back, which time frame there, usually when you get them to your extension office, you're looking at 7 to 10 days of getting those results back once you get them turned in. And then that way you'll be able to bring those results into the co-op and talk to myself or one of the other agronomists there at the co-op to be able to help you analyze those readouts on the soil tests and see what you're actually needing. And then make a plan for timing and things like that to get that fertilizer put out correctly. As far as after you put fertilizer out, time frame wise of when you'll be able to kind of see those differences, you're looking at 30 to 45 days for that fertilizer to get into the soil and be broken down and be usable for those plants. A way to do it as far as taking the sample, going out, you need about, so I showed you the probe, you're going to need about 20 of those in random spots for every 20 acres. And what I like to do is take a bucket, mix them all up, and then fill one box up that the extension office can provide you. Fill that box up so you get an accurate reading of the whole field, kind of what your soil is actually needing. With that, I'll send it back over to you, Christy.
All right, Blake. Hey, sorry for that little bit delay. We're from 2 different places tonight, so we are making technology work tonight. So, Blake, I really appreciate you taking the time and kind of walking us through, because I think we're all guilty. Coming off the ranch myself is, you know, we run quite a bit of our cattle operations off average, right? Right. So there's great ways that we can look at things and help you guys. I mean, reach out to Blake, any of your farmers locations, and they can sure get you in contact and with the agronomy department. So a couple of things. And if I remember right, we talked about a fertilizer cost, right, of a 1910 and a 1910-20, kind of just average type of run of the mill. And that's going to cost about $72 an acre. Those numbers about right? So he's shaking his head behind the scene here tonight, guys. And we're going to assume that we're going to get about 3 bales to the acre on average, and that those bales are going to weigh about 1,200 pounds. So just rough average numbers here tonight, folks. So that's going to equate to about $40 a ton just with that fertilizer cost. Then we break that down to the bale cost. That's going to be about $24 a bale just on that fertilizer side. Okay. So then the next set of numbers that Greg and I had talked through was talking about baler cost, or the baling cost. I apologize. So that's going to be your tractor, your or that's going to equate to about $30 a bale. And as we were working through this, Greg kind of made the comment tonight, or earlier today, right? NT is, boy, that makes me really kind of choke a little bit when I stop and I really think about these costs. Because we're talking about a production cost on our hay about $90 a ton, or about $54 a.
And Christy, the point to remember, that is before we have any losses, either feeding losses, storage losses, any kind of waste. So you've got $1.50 a day just in hay cost. All right. So for 120 days, you've got $180 wrapped up in hay. And so that's why it is so important to think about not only getting the proper fertilizer out there so we can get a good amount of hay, but also start thinking about the quality and really the storage losses as well. So Christy, we've got some examples here.
Right.
We're in a hay barn, obviously, and behind us, we've got that hay stacked. Hay inside. The hay quality actually doesn't change from year to year. If you're putting up fescue hay, there's some research out there that fescue hay from year 1 to year 2 actually gets better because that endophyte fungus that causes a lot of the problems, it actually declines over a year's time period. So if any of you have ever fed fescue hay and you wondered why your cows eat it better the second year than the year it was put up, that's why. Okay. So hay inside, once you put it in there, it's good, right? So Chris, there's a lot of other different ways to feed or store hay, right?
Absolutely.
So the other end of the spectrum is what is here on my left. So Greg picked this bale up for us earlier today. Obviously stored outside. You say, well, it's net wrapped and it shed a lot of water. Well, did it? Okay, so you can see we've got it stacked in here to where the part of the bale that was on the ground is now on the top, just so you could see the amount of waste that's there. The other part I'd point out to you, may be hard to see on the video, but there's at least 4 to 6 inches on the outside of that hay that is discolored and not very good quality. Okay, so there has been water seep in there, nutrients on the way. It started to essentially rot, right? So I want you to think about this. What percentage of that bale is in that outer 4 inches? Actually, I didn't know either. But Christy, I think you've got the research data there that on a bale with a 5-foot diameter, 4 inches, the outside of that bale, 25% of your hay is in that outside. So when you've got that amount of hay waste, you've lost essentially 25 to 30% of your hay. If you don't believe me, I'm gonna give you a real world example. Think back to a year ago. What was the biggest shortage? Toilet paper, right? So when that roll got out, that last little bit, you got that much off, it went a lot faster after that, right? So there you go. Now you can start thinking about it. The outside of that bale, there's a whole lot of hay, all right? So what are some things we can do when we store that? If we have to store hay outside, get a firm base, rock base, something like that, and that would help us. That, Christy, what's that say? If we have a stored outside, no cover on a firm base?
On this firm base, it says no cover, 22% on
22, okay?
Yes, sir.
So what's our next step we can do if we store it outside to help with reduce hay waste?
Well, so
If we cover it,
cover it 8%.
okay, so over half the reduction in loss if we just cover that hay with a good base. So obviously storage in the barn is the best way to do that. But if we can't do that, then what can we do outside to have a good drain spot, put on a good base, and then potentially cover that hay, and that'll help us as well. The other thing we can do is think about what are the best ways to start with good quality hay. Okay, so on Christy's example there earlier, we used 3 bales to the acre, 1,200 pounds. Obviously, that's cool season grasses, fescue, ryegrass, things like that. So think about the best time to cut that hay. the best quality you'll get is actually when that seed head's in the boot stage, but first, nobody's gonna cut it then because we don't get enough hay, right?
Right.
So if you cut it, once that seed head is still green, that's your best combination of quality and quantity, okay? You start waiting until that seed head is mature and starting to brown and the seed head's starting to drop, you've lost a lot of protein and digestibility in your hay. All right, Christy, we've talked about Bermuda grass hay before. If you cut it every 3 weeks, it's going to give you excellent quality, maybe not as much quality. If you wait till 8 weeks, you've got a whole lot of hay that isn't very good. So that's why most folks with Bermuda hay, they want to cut that about every month if they can. That's going to give you the best combination of quality and quantity. Okay, so quality is really important. I want to give you an example here. And we went through this math. I'll just say that Christy was able to put this together for us because for the past year or longer, Christy.
Almost 2 years now. So June will mark 2 years.
Okay, you've been sampling hay from across the area you work in. So we've got a tremendous width and breadth of hay samples. So these are 2 hay samples from her area within the last year. And I'm going to say that I'm going to offer you to buy hay A or B. You're going to look at that protein and they're both 10%. They're both $35 a roll. Which one are you going to buy? A lot of times that's all we know about it. We may not even know this. We may not even know the protein, but let's just say we know the protein. We say, well, maybe hay A is closer to me, a little more convenient, so I buy hay A. Here's why knowing what quality hay you have, whether you are buying it or whether you are feeding it, is so important. These are the other 2 numbers in a hay test that are important. Okay, this first one is NDF, so that's a measure of fiber, and it predicts how much a cow can eat of that type of hay. Okay, the next number is TDN, so the calories, how much energy she's going to get out of every pound she can eat. So TDN, we want a high number. NDF, we want a low number. A low number means she can eat more, and a high number of TDN means she's getting more out of it. Okay, so you can see there's some folks seem to like there's only 7 units difference here, 7 units difference here. What I'm going to tell you is when I go through the math of how much hay this cow can eat and what my supplement cost is going to be to supplement that cow in that last third of gestation, it's going to cost me $1.12 a day. This hay, same protein, same cost per bale, it's going to cost me 30 cents more to supplement that hay just because she can't eat as much hay. Every bite she eats is less nutritious, so I have to use more supplement. So 30 cents a day difference on hay, I pay the same amount per bale. So if you're buying hay, I want to ask, do you have a hay test? If you're feeding your own hay, have somebody from the co-op come out, sample your hay so we can put together the appropriate program. Because it's $54. If you had to feed hay for 150 to 180 days, at 30 cents a day difference, there's your mineral cost for a year. Okay. This better quality hay saved you enough in protein supplementation to buy you 2 bags of mineral per cow per year. That's why it's so important and why forage is really the driver of our cow nutrition programs.
Absolutely. You know, NT, I always get those questions, and we were kind of talking about this earlier today. This is, oh, that old cow's going to eat some more of that old junky hay. It's really not what's going on.
No, she can't. It's the old story of cow starved to death with a belly full of hay. She's eating that quality hay when that happens.
Right.
Yeah. So how do you sample hay, Christy?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. So folks, kind of put the drill up, but here's what we've got. Take a lot of samples out and about, starting about September, October timeframe. So I've got this really nice device here. It's a quarter, put the drill onto it. And what we'll do with this is I will go in from a side, and that'll go across multiple sections of this bale of hay. And then, whoop, about have a little collision there. So I get a sample of hay. We send it off to an external lab. We utilize SureTech, kind of one of our industry. A lot of folks use SureTech, and it takes us about a week to get the results back, give or take. Then what I do is I sit down and run through these numbers right here. I'll look at that protein, some NDF, some TDN, do some protein supplementation worksheets, and it's fun to do that. Sometimes I have to call NT up and get a little bit of advice, make sure I've done some things right. So guys, we're here to help you feed the best in the cows, right? Supplement you guys, keep you, I know times are a little bit tough right now, especially with this grain market all over the board, but we're just trying to help you.
Why hay quality and it's so important, why we wanted to have this meeting this time of year ahead of the hay season. Think about the combination of quantity, quality, what you can do to minimize your hay waste. We can go into a lot of different things, from how you feed that hay and type of bale ring, and all of those type of things. But really, hay is your biggest expense, and managing that, Christy, I think is the way that we can best help our program shine with producer and help them be economically viable through situations like this.
Absolutely. And folks, don't forget that, any of your farmers cooperative locations across Western Arkansas and into Eastern Oklahoma and the agronomy department, we are here to help you guys. Our goal every day is to help you guys through these challenging times that we're all facing. So with that, we're going to take any questions, see if we got any questions. Have we apologize, we're running on 2 different devices here tonight. So you guys got any questions? Let's drop those in. One of the questions that has been dropped in is, she is concerned with pelleted versions, what you're feeding each time and being consistent. How do you know how much they are getting?
Pelleted versions.
So basically, how do you know how they are? To answer, that would be greatly appreciated. So apologize with that. NT, I guess the other one that I get quite a bit is I'll put that chicken litter out. That's what I'm using for fertilizer, and kind of don't really need that much phosphorus out there for my mineral. Can you kind of touch a little bit on that while we're trying to see what we can get back on that?
What fertilizer is for, and as Blake mentioned, it's really to increase the volume of hay that we get. It's not necessarily going to change the quality a whole lot, as we discussed. That's more about growing season and when you are able to get it cut. And really, that, Christy, the reason we started doing this, your sampling and collecting of these samples over 2 years, is to really compare from your northern area, Decatur, basically all the way down towards Mena, is to look at the differences. And what we found is, when it comes to phosphorus, it's pretty much book value. It just doesn't vary that much. So what the phosphorus does is allows us to produce, and nitrogen allows us to produce more plants, which means more hay. But every pound of that hay isn't necessarily got more phosphorus. You just got more pounds of hay. So it doesn't really change the cow's requirement. She still needs a 6 to 8% phosphorus.
Absolutely. Jennifer, do you see anything out there on for questions?
CW said, can you touch on baleage?
Okay, on baleage. So with baleage, the advantage of it is kind of like this early growing season you've got right now. You may only have a window of less than 3 days to get something put up before the next rain. So the advantage of baleage to me is it allows you to get out there and get that hay harvested at a good quality. And then obviously, stored and wrapped, stored outside, it's already wrapped. You're going to have very, very little loss. So those are all advantages of it. Disadvantages, I guess, would be if you have to move that hay very far, you're hauling a lot of water. There is some, that wrapping cost. The one thing I would caution folks that when I hear this, I kind of cringe a little bit, and they say, Christy, man, when I put out that wet hay, man, those cows really clean it up. Well, if the quality is good, that's great. If the quality is not very good and they're still cleaning up, you're probably not feeding enough hay. So remember, with haylage, for every you're feeding them, you need to feed more of it, because it's about a third water. So sometimes when they say, man, you really clean it up, you may be shortening the cows a little hay.
I think you and I've talked through some of that. It's always about a lot of water. That means they're going to have to consume a lot.
They got to consume about a third more.
Right. So we got another question that's come across here tonight is, how does summer heat affect late summer quality
Summer heat and
and the
late-
quality?
and we, certainly on a cool season forage, at that point, it's gonna go through that summer slump. It is dormant at that stage. And so the digestibility, the fiber is going up, the protein is going down. So that late cut, cool season grasses are not gonna be as good. Warm season grasses, I think, as long as you got the moisture, it's gonna keep growing, but that heat
What is the best way to determine when to cut mixed grass pastures where different species will be at different stages?
Yeah, great question. Probably, again, those, when they start shooting up that seed head, if you can get most of them from boot to still green, that would be the time I would go to trying to cut that hay. At that point, obviously, the weather plays a role in all of that as well. But if we always try to maximize quantity, mixed species, is how I guess I think about that.
Okay, so we've got even more coming in. So what is the optimum moisture should I be baling my hay?
Yeah, probably in that 18 to 18% moisture range to 20 would be on the upper end of where that would be. And then, when most of our hay that we're going to sample, by the time it's stacked and stored, our hay samples are going to show that it's in that 12 to 15% moisture range. A lot of hay that's stored outside will still come in that 16 to 18, somewhere in that 18 to 20 range. My suggestion.
Okay. So I'm not seeing anything else at this time. Jennifer, are you? So guys, I know we're doing a live stream straight from Zoom onto our Facebook page. And we are also recording this. So if you guys jumped on a little later and missed part of this, and here in a couple of days, we'll be having that on YouTube as well. So on the Farmers Co-op YouTube. So with that, we're going to call for a final round of questions. But while we are doing that, couple of things. I know we talk about how do we get that $10 off Digigraph coupon. So folks, if you pull out your mobile device and text Purina to 57682, you'll receive a hyperlink. Click on that. You'll have to enter in your email address and a phone number. And then you'll select A, then Arkansas, and then the event tonight is underneath Farmers Cooperative Greenwood. And then that will send you an email with the $10 off Digigraph coupon that you can bring into any of your 15 retail locations within Farmers Cooperative locations. So we'll go back over this once again. So we're going to text Purina to 57682. One other thing that we've got going on, so I guess we've got this nice cooler that anything yet, but there was a comment that said junky hay. And I think tonight that we're going to use the word junky hay. You take that into any of your 15 retail locations across Western Arkansas and into Eastern Oklahoma to your Farmers Cooperative location. They'll give you a little red slip and allow you to drop your name in there. And we will draw for this. And you guys will have until Saturday, May the 22nd for entry on this. So junky hay, any of your 15 Farmers Cooperative retail locations, junky hay till May the 22nd for your entry, and we will draw for that on May the 24th. So I do see that we have one more question that came through during our final call. Is haylage sampled the same way as dry hay?
It is sampled the same way. We just have to kind of cut a little X in that plastic. Probe goes in there, sample it just like Christy showed here. And we just put a piece of tape right back over that plastic so we don't allow any air in there and storage waste. So yeah, sample the same exact way, just a matter of patching up that hole once we make it.
Perfect. So guys, I guess there's one more thing I want to point out. So tonight, we've also got our brand new park bench in. Jennifer, you want to step around here and talk just a little bit about this brand new park bench?
So last year we collected your old lick tubs. It doesn't matter if they're wind and rain tubs, the Purina Rangeland. They could be an off-brand. If you guys will bring them into us, I think our first collection is going to be in August.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay, so you will get a $4 off voucher to use towards tubs next season. And this is what we're doing with them. You're going to be able to stop in and
so keep on checking out on our social media posts, as probably right there sometime in July, we'll be dropping some stuff out on social media, letting you know what our collection periods will be. But I think it's a great opportunity to be stewards of the land and help kind of keep everything grand. So with that, folks, we appreciate Dr. NT for
Thanks for
driving
having
all the way down.
Yeah.
So guys, we're going to get started doing some face-to-face meetings in the fall of 2021. I know we're excited about it. So we're on track to see you guys face-to-face soon. So with that, folks, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining.